TCI is brought to you by Forestry, sire of 42 stakes winners, including 2011 Preakness winner Shackelford.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. I'm John Siegel alongside Joel Cunningham. Joel, going into the weekend, the question was, would Union Rags lose that #1 spot? Gemologist was very impressive in the Wood Memorial, but did he do enough to take that #1 spot?
He didn't quite do enough to be #1 for me quite yet, John, but he has to move in the top 3 off that Wood Memorial victory. I mean, here's an undefeated colt, and just look at, when you're talking about Derby candidates and checking the boxes, what does this horse not check? I mean, trained by Todd Pletcher,
right,
owned by Windstar, son of Tisnow, so he'll get the classic distance. Loves Churchill Downs, is a great stakes winner there. Undefeated, and I think maybe the best quality, John, is what he showed inside the 16th pole in the Wood. The ability to fight, the heart that he has. The reason he's undefeated, because he has that fight. He wants to win. So I cannot knock anybody that has this horse #1 on his Derby list. For me, I have to have him in the top 3, but I still am impressed with Union Rag's body of work, and he'll remain #1 for me. But certainly Gemologist, a for-real Derby contender, and this is a great 3-year-old crop.
It really is. Let's mention the horse that you said he fought against. That was Alpha. He comes running late, had a lot of traffic trouble. Joel, a lot of people say he showed a lot of heart as well.
It's good to see Alpha run well. We knew he liked Aqueduct's inner track, but he really hadn't beat anybody all winter. And, they played sort of musical chairs with this colt. Where is he going to run? They thought about the Florida Derby, Louisiana Derby. They were able to get Ramon Dominguez and run him back in the Wood Memorial. And, it appeared like most of the speed held in the race, other than My Adonis. We don't know what happened to him. It was sort of an oddly run race because you had a lot of wind that day, John. You had a lot of tailwind going into the first turn, which may have attributed to that 23 and change. But every quarter after that got slower, which makes sense because then they were running into the headwind down the backstretch. So a really odd day of racing there at Aqueduct, and there really wasn't any two-turn races on dirt other than the Wood to really be able to get a gauge on how good of a race this was. But I think it was a quality race by the fact that you had 2 top-class colts run 1-2 in here, and you had to have been encouraged with the way Alpha closed in the stretch.
Definitely, and now they both have enough graded earnings. Looks like we may see a rematch of these two in the Derby. Worth mentioning, My Adonis disappoints, runs last, does not have enough graded earnings, will not make the Derby field at this point. Right. I want to talk about the horse you have in still at #2. That's Creative Cause. Even though he lost in the Santa Anita Derby to I'll Have Another, who was Ed's pick on Thursday, by the way.
Right.
Joel, I noticed you got him still at #2. I'll Have Another jumps onto the list at #9.
Let's turn to the Twin Spires TV race replay for this, John, to sort of illustrate Creative Cause's trip in here, John. He had an inside run. You look here, he's making his run along the inside. Now, he had blinkers off in this race. And turning for home, he looks like he has a lot of horse in here, John. But speed was holding at Santa Anita. I mean, you see Bob Baffert's long shot in here. Blue Skies and Rainbows is supposed to be the rabbit in the race.
Right.
Well, he is kicking on in here and a big threat to steal it on the front end. Creative Cause makes a bold run. However, I'll Have Another, I thought, had a little better trip than him to be able to lay close to that speed and have inside mark. It looked like, to me, Creative Cause inside the 16th pole here. He starts gawking a little bit, maybe with the blinkers off, and I'm not so sure you're getting hit to the bottom of him. You're getting his full effort in here. So I think that may have made a difference. Creative Cause is a horse that I just still think, John, he's so honest and he's so good that next month at Churchill Downs, you have to rate him as a top Derby contender.
All right, I'll Have Another, takes a risk, does not run from the Robert Lewis. They take that gamble. Right. They win this race. It pays off. They now have enough graded earnings and will go to the Derby.
Yeah, I'll Have Another. Here's a colt that I was knocking last week. Quite honestly, I wasn't sure how good he was. As Bob Lewis, he got a good speed figure, but he didn't beat anybody in there. He kind of emerged from obscurity. He's 40-1 that day, and you wonder what kind of colt he was. Now, he's trained great since then, but for him to train all the way from early February to the Santa Anita Derby, you kind of wondered what was going on there. Wound up being a great move. I mean, this horse looked tremendous in the post-parade. Creative Cause looked tremendous in the post-parade. I think this was a legitimate race. Now, the speed ratings came back a little slow. They went 147 and change, but that track was lightning fast. And again, you had Bob Baffert's rabbit in there that was really close there at the wire. So you kind of wonder a little bit how that track was playing that day, but he got a tremendous trip. And look, good horses that get the right trip, they make you pay, and now he's a Grade 1 winner.
All right, we got to mention Painter. Disappointing. He comes off the TCI top 10. Disappointing in the fact that he falls out of the gate and then really couldn't settle into his race. Joel, he made a huge move to run fourth.
He did, and he has a bright future. I mean, they may run him in the Preakness. He wasn't really the only disappointment on the weekend. We didn't really talk about Street Life in the Wood Memorial, but, that's another colt. 8 lengths off of that, off the second to last place finisher, second to last place horse down the backstretch, and he only gets beat 7 1/4. I thought he made a sneaky good run and has a future, but you can't be that far out of it. He needs to show more natural speed. Painter, here's a horse that basically falls on his face out of the gate, and quite honestly, in your second lifetime start, you need everything to go right. And after the start he had, and then he gets a little rank in that first turn, he has an in-between trip. He had a lot of excuses in here, but I love his natural ability and the way he was able to kick on and stretch, be a clear-cut fourth despite that trouble. This colt is good, and you got to watch out for him for the summer.
All right, one more race. We had the Illinois Derby. Joel, we see a horse done talking. I noticed that he does not make it onto the TCI top 10, even though connections say they're going to go to the Derby.
Yeah, and this colt is a little interesting. I mean, if you throw out his Gotham performance where he was just terrible, now that was on the inner track, and he's a stone closer, John. Stone closers did nothing on the inner track all year. I mean, you go back and look at that Gotham. It was a speed-oriented type of race, with your favorite in here, Hansen. But you look at this colt and his credentials. I mean, he was just beating a length, and he was right there with El Padrino in the Remsen last year. He's a late closer. He's going to get the pace in the Derby. The question would be, how good is he? He's going to have to take another big step forward because, quite honestly, in that Illinois Derby, Morgan's Gorilla is a horse that we liked in there, but Morgan's Gorilla finishing on his wrong lead, totally exhausted after he went after it with our entourage, and just basically came to a walk in the stretch. So really set up nicely for done talking. He needs to take a step forward if he wants to be a real Kentucky Derby contender, in my opinion.
All right, before I let you go, we said it on Thursday. Graded earnings is the most important thing. I want to take a quick look here. We got 2 horses that are worth mentioning that are on the outside looking in. That's Mark Valesky, and we also have El Padrino. Joel, there's 3 horses that currently have enough graded earnings that are question marks. We have Rote, Triniberg, and also Drill. If 2 of those horses don't run, there's a chance those horses can make it in.
Yeah, and Triniberg's a really interesting horse, John. He's a crack sprinter, in my opinion. He would aid to a fast pace in the Derby. They said they're less than 50% to run him at this time. Might point for the Preakness instead. So be real interesting because he's a big wild card and how the Derby's going to shake up in terms of the early pace. Another one would be a Bob Baffert runs Secret Circle in there. Another fast horse. He's going to run the Arkansas Derby. We're not sure if they're going to make him a Derby horse. Baffert holds a big key. Drill's another horse that I don't think they're going to run in the Derby. Be interesting to see. And then Rote, a turf horse, your Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf winner last year. Is he going to come over, or are they just going to bring Daddy Longlegs? So I do think there are some spots open, and Mark Valesky and El Padrino are in the field right now, in my opinion. And you also have, unfortunately, injuries and attrition that'll come about in the next 4 weeks. But what's going to happen this weekend?
Right.
$1 million Arkansas Derby, $750,000 Bluegrass. You have a lot of opportunities still for these horses to get in, so they're still in trouble, in my opinion.
Man, let's hope we don't have any injuries because as it stands right now, we have a really exciting Kentucky Derby on the rise.
Great group, John. This group is fast. This group is competitive. I mean, you look at the Santa Anita Derby in the Wood. Yeah, I know the winds and the tracks kind of make things quirky, but look at the top 4 finishers in there and look at the nose finishes. I mean, this is a great competitive group. It has to get you excited. And you look at the speed figures all around, this is a fast group. I love the depth and quality of this group, and to me, it's just going to get better when you look at horses like Gradar, Painter, who are going to get better as the year goes on. I'm very excited about this crop.
All right, thank you, Joel. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back on Thursday. We're going to talk about the Arkansas Derby and also the Bluegrass Stakes.